The morning sun slowly rose over the crowded streets of Cebu City, bathing the narrow roads in golden light. Vendors were already shouting out prices for fresh fruit, jeepneys roared past in clouds of smoke, and the sound of footsteps blended with the rhythm of the busy marketplace. Near the corner of a small cafe, on a worn cardboard mat, sat a strange little baby named Miko. He was barely 2 years old, yet his eyes carried a silence that felt heavy, almost ancient. Beside him sat his older sister Luna, only 10, carefully arranging small paper cups for passers-by who sometimes dropped in a few coins out of sympathy. Their clothes were clean but faded from many washes. People often slowed down when they noticed Miko, not because he cried or played like other children, but because he didn't. He simply stared. Quiet. Still. Watching. Some whispered that he looked unusual. Others said he seemed lost in another world. Luna heard these words every day but never replied. She only watched over her brother with fierce protectiveness. As the city noise swelled around them, something unexpected happened. Miko's tiny lips began to move. At first, it sounded like soft breathing. Then, slowly, a deep, trembling melody slipped into the air. It wasn't a child's tune. It was emotional, controlled, and haunting. Luna froze. Nearby vendors fell silent. Even the jeepney driver across the road turned his radio down. The strange baby was singing. Not loudly. Not playfully. But with a sorrowful depth that made grown men pause mid-step. People gathered, confused and shaken. No one could explain how such a powerful, broken-sounding voice could come from such a small body. Luna felt her hands begin to shake as she stared at her brother, realizing, this was not normal, and this was only the beginning. The massive doors of the AGT Philippines theater slowly opened as Luna stepped inside, holding Miko tightly in her arms. The bright stage lights poured into the dark hallway like blazing sunlight. Everything felt unreal, the giant cameras, the crowded audience, the judges' table shining at the far end of the stage. Miko blinked slowly, unafraid, his strange, quiet expression unchanged. Backstage, contestants whispered when they saw him. Some laughed softly. Others stared in disbelief. A baby? On a talent show? Luna could feel judgment in every look. Her heart pounded as a stage assistant clipped a tiny microphone near Miko's collar. He didn't move. He didn't fuss. He just stared at the glowing stage as if he already knew it belonged to him. Their names were called. Luna's legs trembled as she walked onto the stage. The audience murmured immediately. Judges leaned forward, confused. Then the spotlight hit them. Miko stood alone at the center, so small beneath the towering lights. Silence spread through the hall. At the judges' table, Simon Cowell, invited as a special guest, folded his arms and studied the child carefully. His face showed doubt. Another judge leaned toward the microphone and asked gently, "And what will you be singing today?" The screen behind Miko lit up. Song selection, Still Loving You, Scorpions. A ripple of laughter passed through the audience. Some thought it was a joke. Simon lifted his eyebrows. "That's a very big song," he said coolly. The music began. Soft. Slow. Echoing through the hall. Miko lifted his tiny head. And then, the first note left his lips. The laughter vanished instantly. His voice wasn't small. It wasn't childish. It was deep, controlled, and filled with raw emotion. Gasps tore through the audience. Luna clutched her hands together backstage, barely breathing. Simon's posture changed completely as he leaned forward, eyes locked on the stage. The strange baby from Cebu was no longer a mystery. He was a storm. The music continued to rise, slow and powerful, filling every corner of the theater. Miko stood completely still at the center of the stage, his tiny hands relaxed at his sides, his eyes half-closed as if he was singing from somewhere far beyond the room. Each note carried pain, love, and longing far too heavy for a child so small. The audience sat frozen, afraid to even breathe. Backstage, Luna collapsed to her knees, both hands covering her mouth as tears streamed through her fingers. She had heard her brother hum before, but never like this. Never with this depth. Never with this kind of power. Every high note felt like it was tearing through her heart. As the song reached its emotional peak, the impossible happened. Miko hit the legendary high note with perfect control. The sound soared through the hall like a cry from the soul. Several judges broke down instantly. One turned away, wiping her face. Another pressed a hand to his chest, shaking. At the center of the judges' table, Simon Cowell slowly stood up. His eyes were glassy. His jaw tightened as if he was holding back emotion he didn't want the world to see. The song ended on a trembling final note, echoing into complete silence. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then the entire theater exploded. The audience leapt to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. People screamed, cried, and clapped at the same time. Simon looked at the small child on the stage, then back at the judges, and without a single word, he reached forward and slammed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti burst from above, raining down around Miko like glowing stars. He lifted his tiny hands in wonder as the lights reflected in his wide, unafraid eyes. Luna ran onto the stage, sobbing as she knelt beside her brother, pulling him into her arms while the world around them roared in disbelief.